the game. When they need a play, whether it was a 2-point conversion in the first matchup against Southern Cal, they're going to call his number, and he's demonstrated, with pretty routine effectiveness that he's going to deliver when it's called.
When you prep for Utah and you watch their tape, is there any comps to a team you played this year, or any team in the Big Ten?
There is to many teams we've played in the Big Ten, because I think stylistically, they want to huddle. They want to run the football. Their throwing game comes off of running the football, and they want to protect their defense. And that's the thing you see. You see that a program. I think Coach Whittingham and what he's been able to establish and the stability that they've been able to have at Utah, and to understand that they have an elite defense and they're comfortable playing low-scoring games. They're comfortable of not putting their defense in bad situations. They don't allow negative plays on offense. They don't get sacked on offense. They do a good job protecting the ball on offense. All things that would put your defense in a bad position. So yeah, there's certainly a mixture of teams that we've played in our league. You could argue they may have more of a Big Ten style than what you see traditionally out west, and you could also argue that might be why they're so successful, because it feels to me from the outside that the tougher team normally wins this league. You can say that about most leagues, but it feels like in the Pac-12, when SC had it rolling there for a while, when Stanford had it rolling there for a while, and certainly Utah the last 2 years has been the toughest team in this league, and it's no surprise that that's gotten them to back-to-back Rose Bowls.
What's it like scheming for a team that uses the tight end as much as they do in the passing game?
Yeah, well, you've got to be disciplined, because what happens is that the tight ends do a great job of run blocking, and if you get your eyes in the wrong place, all of a sudden you leave those guys wide open, which you've seen a lot of plays. When you look at the yards, there's one thing to have tight ends that catch the ball, but when you look at their yards per completion, those are wide receiver yards per completion. Tight ends shouldn't have 25 yards per catch. It doesn't make any sense. So it shows that they're talented. They can do things after, but it also shows that, we always say you have to keep your eyes on your luggage. If you don't keep your eyes on your luggage, these guys all of a sudden are wide open. So we're blessed. We feel like we've got 3 great tight ends we see every day in practice. So we do get a little bit of prep for that. But what you can't simulate is the motioning and the shifting, and that's really what they do a good job of schematically. Everyone that's played him has known you got to stop the tight ends. It wasn't like, we can just take a month of preparation to figure out, the key is the tight ends and the passing offense. And yet, no one's been able to do it. So it's a credit to how they do it schematically, and a credit to what type of players these guys are.
What's the biggest improvement on this team without their top tight end and their top running back?
Well, the back they've played without, but the tight end, and I don't know who decides on these, tight end awards, and I've watched everybody, but that guy's as good as any tight end in the country. He was really, really special. We felt like we have a corner that's as good as anybody in the country. We felt like our corner's really, really special. So this is part of bowl games. You got to play with the guys that are there. But I think what you've seen is in the development of how they've been able to rotate many tight ends in throughout the course of the season, and rely on different types of targets. It's still going to be a major task for us to stop that part of their passing offense.
What's the biggest improvement Johnny's made over the course of the year?
Johnny Dixon? I think it's just in his confidence. I think the key when you go from being a spot guy to really we consider him a co-starter all year, and that obviously did start most of November. Look, we're going to challenge, and we're going to play man coverage, and they're going to catch a ball, right? And can you line up with that same level of confidence the next play? And I think that started, we saw it back in spring. We saw it through training camps. I think that had been, before I got here, maybe the story on Johnny, up and down. And, everybody says it, you got to have a short memory when you play corner. And I think his confidence has grown as he's had more success through the year. But it's not just, your confidence doesn't come from success. Your confidence also comes from how do you handle failure, right? And I'm really proud of the strides that Johnny's made. And that's been a big part of the reason why we've been able to play pass defense. Even when we had Joey, I don't know we could have done what we had been able to do without having Johnny's development.
You mentioned Joey there. Obviously, only got to spend 1 season with him. But can you kind of take us through his decision to declare and opt out, and then also just the impact that he had and the relationship he had in that 1 year?
Yeah, Joey, obviously, I think it's fairly obvious that we play more man coverage now. But part of that was when I was watching us in the spring, and you see guys like Joey, you see, Kalen King, who really this time last year, knew a lot about. And I said, we're going to be able to lock some people down. And when you have a guy like Joey, and who's got great length, great speed, and then change of direction that's uncanny for a guy at his height, those guys want to cover up wide receivers. They want to challenge every route. And so I think what I'm proud of Joey and the entire corner room, Terry Smith did a phenomenal job getting those guys to play at an elite level this year, is they wanted it. It didn't matter who we played. They wanted to be there toe-to-toe with any wide receiver we played against. It'd make everything difficult and allow their skill set really to come through. So Joey, I think, set the tone that first game against Purdue. And season could have gone a different way. I mean, that was really a tight one there in the fourth quarter. And I still think back to those 5 stops we made in a row in the fourth quarter that really kick-started us and kind of got the whole season going. And Joey was a huge part. We don't win that game without Joey Porter. And if we don't win that game, we're certainly not here talking, you and I, in Los Angeles right now. So,
Manny, what's the year been like for you? Just, going from a head coach to now coming to a new school coordinator. Has it kind of been refreshing going back and coaching and teaching and everything, or just what's it been like?
Yeah, you could use that word. It's fun. Let's call it like it is. I loved being a head coach, but I absolutely love coordinating defenses. And I've said this before, but coaching a room, to be able to work with Abdul Carter and teach him from that guy showed up on August 1st and didn't know anything to now watching him play. I mean, that to me is what coaching is at its essence. And it's no different when you're a head coach. But when you're a head coach, you got 120 of them. When you're a coordinator, you got half of them. But when you're a position coach, you've 12 to 15 of them. And just watching them go from here to there. And again, what's been rewarding for me this year is that when I think of our defense in the Purdue game to where we were in the Michigan State game, we're a completely different animal. We're a different animal from where we were in the Michigan game. We were different than the Minnesota game. I mean, really, week by week, I felt like we really got better and better. And the reason why is because Tyler Elsdon got better. Kobe King got better. Curtis Jacobs got better. And when you see the guys making the individual improvements, that is as a coach, that's the part that's rewarding. Because you see their confidence grow, you see them be able to play faster, you see them make more plays. And that's been the fun part of the journey this year.
Manny, you mentioned Curtis. From the film that you watched on him when you first got in to the player he is now, where have you kind of seen him grow on, off the field, and kind of how he's kind of taken to what you've thrown at him?
Well, it's funny because now we forget, and I kind of put this in the linebackers' faces all summer, but, Curtis had never played in the box. Right? I mean, even if you look at his experience in high school, that's a different world in those A gaps and B gaps. It's going to be a different world on January 2nd with what Utah does. So the first question mark is simply physically, can you roll your sleeves up and get down and dirty inside the box? Now we know the answer is yes. In September, we didn't really know the answer to that. So the first thing I'm proud of is that Kurt's, his toughness was questioned. Not that he had been not tough on film, but just playing out there at Sam is just a different universe than coming to Will. So proud of him for that. As the season went on, and we needed to create more of a role for Abdul, his ability to play Sam and Will, so those guys can be on the field at the same time. That's no easy thing, and that shows you what type of football IQ that Kurt has. There's not many guys in our field that play 2 positions, and Kurt does, and then what he does in our third down package. And that's why I think about really the Minnesota game, which was a big game for us psychologically because, when you give up when you have a performance like you did against Michigan, and here comes, the all-time leading rusher in Minnesota history and this ginormous offensive line and this pounding running attack, Kurt was on a different level that night. And all of our guys on defense took a lot of confidence in the way we played the run that night, and I think that propelled us really, barring one screw-up against Ohio State, how we played up front against Ohio State the next week, and then obviously how we played in November. Really, I thought that's why that Minnesota game was so important, and Kurt was a big part of that.
And you talk about Kurt's ability to play multiple linebacker positions, Abdul Carter now doing the same thing. What's the importance of having versatile linebackers in your room?
Well, it allows you as a coach to have more flexibility. in what you do defensively. On our third down package, we had Kurt and Abdul together, I think, starting at the Auburn game. But in our base package, it really probably wasn't until Michigan that those two started playing together, and then just needing more at bats at it. Because look, as a coach, our job is to get our best players on the field. And as Abdul was developing, the only way that could happen is if Kurt was incapable of being able to handle, going back out to Sam, then it would have been hard on us. But that's where you like you mentioned, having some flexibility and having guys be able to play multiple roles just helps out the flexibility we have as schematically.
You mentioned that Minnesota game, but after the Michigan game, James said that he wants the line to be bigger. He wants you guys to be bigger up front, said the same thing with the offensive line. Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think like you guys have the right size for a team like that?
Well, here's the way I respond to that is we weren't going to get bigger before we played Minnesota. Right? And what the film said was size was not an issue. What the film said against Michigan, it was trust was an issue. And we started playing slow because we didn't believe in the guys around us. And that was the hard talk. And as someone mentioned earlier, that's why, look, as a coach, whether you win, lose, play well, don't play well, there's just a performance. And the film we watch doesn't tell us whether we win or lose. It just tells us what our performance is. And we had to be very upfront and honest with what happened that day in Ann Arbor. And I think that was actually a very important day in hindsight because it forced us to decide whether we're going to go all in and really believe in each other and what we were doing or not. And like I said, the leadership, the guys that are in this room right now, PJ and Tig and Kurt and I could go on, they saw it and they decided, because look, we had two choices. We can continue to not trust each other and not believe that if you're going to be to my right, then I'm going to be to your left and we'll make it happen. But if we don't, then it's going to look the same way, right? So I think their personal pride said, okay, we know what it looks like when we stop our feet on contact and play slow. Now, that being said, in a vacuum, bigger players that trust each other, sure, in theory are better. But we're always going to be, and this predates me even getting here, we're always going to be a dynamic front. We're going to be a movement-based front. This is a game that's about affecting the quarterback, right? And so I love the guys that we have up front, and I love the way that we have played. And I think once we kind of just sort of let go and just really play to the scheme, we've been very hard to run the football against. And we don't get a mulligan against Michigan, but look at Michigan's defensive line. Those guys aren't giants, but they're playing their tails off also. So I think our guys learned a lot that day. And like I said, we don't have midseason free agency. We had to get better what we had in the room, and I like what we have in the room.
Coach, how would you evaluate the class of 2023 additions you made? Are there any needs you still want to fill as you look forward?
The group
beyond the Rose Bowl,
the group we just signed.
Yes.
I think we've got. Every coach is going to say this coming out of signing day, but I think at all three levels, I think we've got some dynamic playmakers. I really like what we added. I'm starting backwards, forwards in the secondary. A lot of guys that can factor in a lot of different ways in your defense. Just playmakers. I think that's the thing that I would say in the back end. And I hate, if I start saying guys' names and you start not mentioning other guys' names. I think we signed 3 elite linebackers. Very pleased at that group. And then up front, I think we've got some, again, guys that fit our mold of the type of people that we want. Now, look, we're in an era where, as you guys know, signing day, you may be adding guys, you can add guys all the way through mid-May now, right? So it's not the same, it's not the holiday that it used to be. But I think, I will say this, and if you have any follow-up, you can ask, but I think what we've done is, I think we've laid a foundation still of what this program wants to be, of getting great high school players into our program, that we can get to our strength program, we can develop and become the guys that you see sitting around this room right now. And in the era where it seems like you can just go into the store and sort of pick anything off the shelf, there's value in that, and we're in that store as well. But Penn State at its best is going to be a developmental program, and I think the guys that we have we really like and just can't wait to get. And the other thing, we're blessed. We got about double digits of guys coming in mid-year too. So to get those guys in our program, get them rolling, will be exciting.
In that regard, talking about the transfer portal, of course, you had the experience of being a head coach and before that really became a thing, and obviously now. From the outside looking in, it would seem like it's hard. There'd be tension in the locker room or things like that when you're bringing guys in and you already have guys in your program that you've recruited. So, from your perspective, how does that work? And is it gotten better as time's gone on and maybe become more part of it?
That's a great question, and it's not asked enough. When I was head coach, and I thought we did a good job at Miami in the portal. Kind of one of the first ones that kind of went that way a little bit. The first thing is always morale. Morale. This is not fantasy football. You know, when you drop a guy in fantasy football, the other guys on your fantasy football team, they don't care when you added the new guy, right? The guy that you drop cares, right? These are real live people. And what I've always said is that when you bring a guy into the room, every guy in that room needs to be happy and know why that guy is there. Because most players want to win. And obviously, yes, we're going to play the best players. I think we established that this year. You see what happened with a guy like Chop and the impact he had on our defense. But the players had to understand why we needed Chop. It wasn't just, because it's a luxury. You know, no, everyone saw for us to be great, we needed more help on the edge. And I think if you always go through that you have the ability to fix your needs, right? So one, what are our needs? What can be fixed in the short term that a high school player, by developing, may not be, we can't wait that long. But then the players have to know, because if you have an issue morale-wise, you'll have an issue. And I think we will see that more going forward, where it just doesn't happen every year. And by the way, we've seen that. That's called pro sports, right? That happens in the pros. They sign this free agent. For whatever reason, it doesn't come off. And so I think that'll be a part of our game too.
Manny, why might it make sense for your team to add a veteran quarterback?
Why would we want to add?
Why might it make sense in this offseason to add a veteran to that position?
Well, I think there's two things, and again, if you look at the pros as a model, where the game is going is you better have some people that can cover, and you better have some people that can rush the quarterback, right? And for us to do what we want to do, coverage-wise, which I think is now obvious, 12 games into it, is we want to get up in people's face and we want to play man coverage, and that's just not something that everybody can do. Now, we can adjust, and we can play more zone, and we can do more things, and we have this year. But to be great, I will say this: to be at the top of college football, you got to be able to cover. You just have to be able to cover, and so to me, that's a room that we always have to make sure that we've got guys that we think can do that at an elite level. And I think that's a big part of why we were what we were this year. And like I said, that's sometimes a hard place just to throw a young guy out there. And so, yeah, I mean, I think pass rushers and guys that can cover are important.
Manny, can you sum up what this year has meant to you? Has it matched your expectations? Obviously, came off a tough situation. Just what it's meant to you.
Yeah, it's been a very rewarding experience for me. It's these players that I get to coach every day have been they've been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed. Like I said, I've really enjoyed just being a part of their journey to success. And it's just been super rewarding to watch them grow and see the fun that they've had as this defense has gotten better and better.
Manny, we've talked a lot about Abdul. What about the other true freshmen that contributed to this defense? We talked about guys like Zane, Cam Miller. What have you seen out of them this year? How they've developed and how they've earned their way onto the
Yeah, I mean, Zane and Nittany, again, in terms of their ability to be disruptive up front. Zane Durant, that's hard to be an inside guy and play as a true freshman. And for them to fight through the hard part of being a freshman and kind of hitting that wall and expectations and all that. And I got to give credit to John Scott for two ways. One, to develop them, which is not so easy to get those guys to play at that spot early on. But two, talk about morale, keeping that room going. It's hard to roll 5 ends into a game. It's hard to roll 5 defensive tackles into a game. But I think as our kids up front believe that the way we play is most effective when we all play less snaps. And I think it's why we got better in November, because we were putting less mileage on our team, on our defense. We were able to roll so many guys on defense. In the back end, you mentioned Cam Miller, who we're really proud of the way that Cam plays. And the guy, again, is KJ Wright, who I just think has got unlimited potential, is really going to be an outstanding player, and what a great treat for him to be able to watch a guy like Jair Brown and just learn and pick his brain and study his habits. So,
is there a freshman that redshirted this year that would have played, that could have played more, but it was one of those conversations that it didn't make sense to burn him in terms of his ability and what he was doing in practice for you guys?
I think by the time that sort of the ship sailed midway through the season, I think the 5 that played the most were the 5 that made sense. I think everybody else, I think for one way or another, I think we felt it was best to keep them where they were.
Manny, you had mentioned Coach Stock earlier. What's it been like working with him the past year? What's that relationship like?
John's he's a really cares about his players. Wants to get everything right. Wants to his guys to play at a high level. Obviously, he's got experience of being in the NFL, and I think his guys respond. I think it's been obvious the way those guys have played up front. They've gotten better and better as years going on.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man. Really
So you're saying you're in a survivor, or a fantasy league? Is that
yeah.
what we got?
No, my whole my family is, but I stay away from that.
All that free time you got?
Yeah, exactly.
You're all set. Have a good day. No, they no. I mean, they don't.